Bands from New York City are just snobby little rich kids playing rock star. Just a bunch of people with unlimited funds, creating the most mediocre music you'll ever hear. Those are thoughts that were once in my brain. And I know New York is not just New York City, but I swear I was the biggest hater ever in terms of everything before I ever started talking about music online. But anyways, back then I would just completely disregard every band or any musician that was coming out of New York City. I always thought, what do these people even have to offer? All those thoughts completely vanished when I realized that there's some iconic bands out there that did have some advantages back in the day. So it's like, good music is good music. I don't really care who makes it, as long as the people or the band aren't terrible people. And by terrible people, I mean people who do terrible things. You guys have seen me talk about bands coming out of California and Texas, so it's only right I talk about New York. And all these bands on here are not rich or whatever. I don't really care about their financial situations. I'm just talking about the music, so I just wanted to get that out the way before anyone said anything. New York is scattered with a bunch of talented humanoids. There's a bunch of pretty noises going on, so let me talk about all these bands that I enjoy and I think that you would enjoy as well. Like and subscribe as always. Keep the music alive. Let's go. And like I begin every one of these videos, I'm gonna get the bands I talk about a lot out of the way, just to, briefly talk about them and then just showcase all the other people I haven't really touched on. Starting off with the band I always talk about that's right next to me, Hello Mary. A brilliant alternative rock band that has a ton of awesome moments with harmony, and it's very high quality in terms of the sound. It's very late 90s, early 2000s alternative rock, colorful instrumentation, and honestly just a lovely band. Moving on to the band Pretty Sick. This band is also an alternative rock band, but this band does showcase a bunch of mid-90s alternative rock ability, reminiscent of bands like The Breeders, Hole, and Sonic Youth, but with a much more modern sound. There is this golden 90s alternative influence, and you know what? I don't care if it sounds similar to other bands. This band really showcases a bunch of ferocious, beautiful moments. This next artist is just an artist and not a band, and this is Joanna Sternberg. The sound is pretty much like if someone had the wizard-like ability to make a coloring book sing. Beautiful and honest and sad songwriting, but you know what? I'm into it. You should be into it too. Moving on to Lola Star, an indie rock shoegaze sounding band that I've also talked about in a previous video. This band does a really good job of blending both vocalists, and it's almost like they have just this amazing image for you. One of my favorites out of the state of New York. Now it's time to talk about bands I haven't really talked about before, starting with the band Crumb. Psychedelic indie rock band. A band that's been around for a while now. I want to say like 6 or 7 years or something like that. And a band I feel like was probably my personal favorite around 2019, 2020. Those were the early community college years, so I had this band in constant rotation. They released an awesome album in 2019, and I feel like if you listen to that whole thing throughout, it's almost like it's one song. It's just a crazy experience. And looking back objectively, it doesn't have like the most variety in terms of sound. It kind of does sound a little bit repetitive sometimes, but that's the beauty in it for me. Even though there's some moments where it gets a little repetitive, it doesn't get boring to me at least, and I feel like a bunch of people would dig this music. They did release a more diverse sounding album in 2021 called Ice Melt, and that is just a bad trip. And by bad trip, I mean like a bad mushroom taking psychedelic trip, but in the best sounding way possible. A good, very good, even maybe great band that has modeled consistency for a long time now. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how to pronounce this next band's name, but I think it's OLTH, OLTH. I have no idea, I'm sorry. And usually I kind of look for recommendations just in case I'm missing out on some bands on my Instagram. I ask people, and this was recommended. I listened and I was like floored, man. And if you listen to this music, you might think that it's like a fork scratching a plate or scraping a plate. This erratic like behavior makes me rather hype, and you know what, it's kind of contagious. And when you keep listening, the explosive moments feel like they have explosive moments within those explosive moments. And I know that sounds so stupid, and this overall review of this band sounds pretty poor, but to me, That's exactly what it sounds like. An explosion holding an explosion within. I really, really recommend their album Every Day is Someone's Special Day. You will either have a lot of fun or you'll hate me for this suggestion. This next band was also recommended to me on Instagram, and I'm glad it was recommended because I have no idea about this band until now. And this band is called Push Ups, which, by the way, sick name. This band has an overall vibe that I can compare to bands like Julie and Juggler and maybe even Flying Fish. They provide this swagger-like alternative rock that makes you want to pick up an instrument, which I really, really enjoy. No album as of right now from the band, but you know what? That's okay because they have good songs. Let's move on to the band Water From Your Eyes. And the way I tell people to listen to this band is with an open mind, because if you're closed-minded, you're just going to turn it off, which, stop. There is a lot of stuff going on in terms of the noises, but everything's very calculated. There's a bunch of electronic sound waves that I was never the biggest fan of, but this band really opened my third eye, and I was like, damn, this is pretty freaking hype. I like to call it a beautiful pile of paint, so thank you, Water From Your Eyes. You guys make really good music. Shall I move on to the band called Bedridden? This band has a ton of killer riffs, and just like the band Push Ups that I mentioned, this band does have that swag where I'm just like, damn, dude, they just make swag rock. I don't know if that's a thing, but they make that. And not the biggest discography. They do have an EP, and that does make sense because they're relatively new, so just give them a shot. Their instrumentation and production of the overall sound is my favorite part of the band. Their lyrics are actually really nice too, and honestly a ton of potential I see with this band. And moving forward, whatever they do with an album or another EP, we'll see. I feel like it's gonna rock. Moving on to this solo project, Blood Estate, and this band or solo artist is really good in terms of their lo-fi and slowcore sound. This artist or band or whatever actually released an album a couple days ago called Forever, and it sounds really cloudy, which I really enjoy when people make slowcore sound really not depressing but very sorrowy. And even though it is sort of sad or sorrowy, like I said, there is some little bit of sun within that sorrow and fog, and just think of it as an adventure through a foggy street, and at the end of that foggy street is a very sunny amusement park or something. I don't know. I actually said in the beginning of this video that I would mention bands that I've talked about before, and this next band is a band I always talk about, and the band is called Waveform. I've only talked about Waveform once on an indie rock video on this YouTube channel, but on TikTok I've literally talked about them forever, and I don't know if I'm gonna make a separate video about them. Maybe I will, probably not, so I'm just gonna go a little bit in detail with the band. An indie alternative rock band that has a lot of shades of Alex G in their earlier pieces of work, but as time goes on you have to evolve into a different sound, otherwise people will just call you clones of Alex G or any other artist band. They kind of have this chemistry in unison where it's like they don't bombard each other or they don't get in each other's way, because when you have two songwriters or two singers, it's like sometimes you do get in the way, sometimes it's almost like it shouldn't be there. The two singers are just not meshing at all, which could be awkward situations for a lot of bands, but with Waveform it's certainly not one problem at all. And by the way, people who listen to Waveform, you're going to be like, what? They're from Connecticut. Why are you saying they're from New York? I have my sources, and they're now based in Brooklyn, so stop it. As you can see, I'm literally very passionate about this band, and you know what? They just make good music that I hold on to. So this next band I'm going to talk about is a band called People I Love, a separate project from a member of Waveform and Lola Star. My thing about this artist and band is, you know how I talked about Waveform has amazing songwriting? I feel like this dude has some of the best songwriting in the game right now, and I truly feel like I don't care about songwriting that much when I'm looking at a band's overall sound. Sure, songwriting is sort of important, but it's not the main thing for me, at least. The main thing for me is the totality of a band's sound, whether it be production, the lyrics, the melodies, the riffs, the chemistry, the identity. It's all of that just jumbled up. But whenever someone writes songs like this, it's something I can't ignore, so that's why I'm talking about it and highlighting it. When this human writes lyrics, the picture isn't just painted yet, it's instilled in your brain before anything even begins. Big fan. This next band that I'm going to talk about is a band I don't think I've ever mentioned on the channel, so that's a good thing. I like talking about new bands on this channel more in depth, and this band is called Fish Hunt. Fish Hunt is this indie rock alternative in between one of those, type of bands. I just realized I do this all the time, and that's crazy. Anyways, Fish Hunt dropped an album called Self-Taught, and what an album. Let me tell you about it. My favorite part about Fish Hunt is the vocals, because it's so identifiable. You kind of know who it is, right, when you hear it, and that's what stands out to me. It's very noticeable with the little twang the voice singer has. The songwriting is true and honest and all these things where it's like, oh my god, how can someone have all these colorful creative ideas within their brain? Some people who listen to Fish Hunt might not like the vocals or anything, and that's kind of how it goes. If a vocalist has a very identifiable voice, you either love it or you hate it, and in my case, I really love this vocal and band, and just band. Yeah, I love this band. The next band I'm going to talk about is Computerwife. Music that you find a CD in a record store or a thrift store or whatever, and you're just like, dang, this music's crazy. That's kind of how I view it. Computerwife's sound on their self-titled album does involve a lot of different sounds, including computer-like stuff, which, it's in the name, so it makes sense. There's a bunch of noise and vibrant vocal delay and just trippy, creepy kind of music, and you know what? I love it. And you know what? I think that's the last band on this video, and I should have said that before I talked about Computerwife, but you know what? It is what it is. I wasn't looking at my list. I was going off pure vibes. Were you once like me, where it was like, damn, I hate all these New York City kids making music? Like, bro, you're not about that. Stop it. Stop it right now. Have you also changed with your view of music? I feel like I've matured and grown in a lot of different ways, so you know what? That is something I can identify. I don't know if you've changed. You're probably still weird, so I'm only joking. I don't care how you feel. It is what it is. Is the music good to you? Do you like the recommendations? Do you have someone I missed? I probably missed a lot of people, so my bad. I just do what I like. I talk about who I like. I forgot. I'll leave the Spotify links down below so you can just listen to all these bands. I'm sure you guys will listen to or not, or do whatever you want. Click on their Spotify link. You'll go to their Spotify. It's not that much work. A lot of people are complaining in the comments. Stop it. It takes 2 seconds. Anyways, like, subscribe, keep the music alive. New York City will never die.